me by your friend Lisa Balbaum is a profile of Vivian Silver, who was highlighted as one of the major peacekeepers in Israel, Palestine, who was also murdered. And her son is on the peace path as well. So I just, it's hard to imagine just how dedicated they are after this kind of profound loss. So if anyone wants to look at this, it's available.
I'm gonna still just keep this.
Ibtisam, who's going to talk about Ibtisam?
No, it's fine. I think that you did a great job.
There's so much else I want to focus on, so I don't want to. I could talk about it. I had heard Ibtisam many times.
Amita, now that I'm back here, I can totally hear it's really hard to hear. So everybody who talks has to stand up and really project. So stand up. Great. Yeah, and maybe stand a little in front of your chairs or wherever you want to be. Great. Thank you.
I don't have all the specifics. What I'm going to share is I had a moment with her one-on-one after she did her formal presentation with us and told her incredible story. I was struck by what she said. She said, men, pardon me, gentlemen, men think with their heads only. Women respond from their head, their heart, and their womb. And for me, that was the most beautiful thing that I heard the whole time from her. She's an extraordinary woman who had a very difficult background, a lot of abuse and so forth, but she really had a sense and an understanding of men and women and how they operate differently. And I loved when she said the womb, for whatever reason.
I will say something about her, is that, you know, you see her in the hijab, she's in the head covering, she's called a sheikha. I've heard her speak at many times over the last years. And what I didn't know about her until this trip was that she didn't used to wear hijab. She just had, like, you know, coiffured hair and her jeans and her Western look, which was true of a lot of Palestinian women, like in the 80s. And then she had this experience on a bus after there was some sort of terrorist attack, where the bus driver told her to get off the bus, even though she was dressed like a Westerner, like an Israeli, you know, and she went through a whole thing. That's what we called her, Rosa Parks. That was our name for her. But she said after that, after she was like they tried to get her off the bus, she said, now I am, yeah, you were talking about kafaya. She said, I decided, hey, they're going to see me as a Palestinian anyway, so I'm going to start dressing the part. So then she started wearing the hijab. And she's also hysterically funny. She talked about her wedding night. I mean, she was mixing politics with personal. I didn't know she was so funny. She's profound and she's funny. Do you want to add anything about her?
That she chose to have 3 children, which is unusual in this culture, because she wanted to finish her education. She has a master's degree, and she said, I'm going to get a PhD if it takes me until I'm 80. And she was just so full of fire, and she just showered us with beautiful treats and accepted us into her home, even though it was during like a holy period. And it was like a real stretch for her, but she just had to meet with us. She's also in that book. So she's really, you know, we met some like heavy hitters that have really been a force in the peace movement.
That video isn't going to work. Okay. From Ibtisam, we went to Akko. We met with I don't have to show the video, but it was Eid al-Fitr. It was the end of Ramadan, and it's a big festival for 3 days, and there was an amusement park. It was, that's the only picture we have of that, but, you know, this is a mixed city, Akko, it's an Israeli city of Palestinians and Israelis, which there had been a lot of, there had been like riots in these mixed cities a few years ago when there was the last Gaza war, including in Akko. And since this war, there has not been. And it's quite amazing, actually. The mixed cities didn't blow up again. Like Ramla, Lod, Akko, and And it was like, I think the fact people have to live, you know, so even though, you know, they're very upset about the war, they're still celebrating their holiday and jumping around on trampolines and doing merry-go-rounds. I mean, they can't not celebrate life, you know, even, so that really struck me. Continue. You have the clicker. Somebody want to talk about this? They were great.
Just briefly, Mashrabias is a playback theater in Akko, Israelis and Palestinians every week, going into schools and basically doing playback theater, which is kind of like working from the themes that might be in an audience at any time, and playing them and moving them through movement and voice. And they were amazing. Every single group we saw was working on the issue in so many different ways, the conflict in so many different ways, and also dealing with trauma. And it was very inspiring to see how many people are working together, basically.
And so there were 2 Palestinians and 2 Israelis, and there's more people in the true Palestinian and Israeli citizens of Israel, and they do it in Arabic and Hebrew, like together, like they mix it all up, and because it's really more about the movement, and the words are less important.
On to Haifa.
Oh, play a minute of that. No, okay, we gotta move on.
Especially the guy
There's,
talking
yeah,
about
let's do it.
Okay.
Let's do another one, not this one. Okay, Haifa. Hamam?
That's, I don't know.
I mean, we could, so.
That's what you wanna talk about, Mona.
Mona, okay. Okay, I don't wanna get too, so, we were all asked to like, what really struck us? So every single day, something struck me and it got deeper and deeper and deeper, so we got to Bethlehem in the end, and that was just, I'm still processing. I am still broken and processing, I'll just say that. Here was the first time I heard Mona. There were 3 Palestinian when we met. The woman with the guitar is Dahlia. She's a rabbi, Israeli Jewish rabbi. And it's the first time I heard, she spoke about a couple things. One was that she's a Palestinian and not an Israeli, even though she's an Israeli citizen. I was really curious about that. She spoke about that. It's the first time I really heard that in a way that I could really hear that and understand it. And then she talked about river to sea. Okay, so river to the sea obviously is very divisive. And she spoke about that in a way that I could really hear that and understand her. And so that was like a key. It was only on day 2. We'd already seen 8 things. And so day 2 was like open, and then I could really take in day 3 and day 4 and day 5 because they got deeper and deeper and harder. So anyway, I have a couple clips from her because she was so transformative. She herself, just want to say she herself grew up as a Christian Palestinian, became Buddhist, and for the first time in her life, she's now dating a Jewish man. Just saying.
She's a veterinarian.
She's a veterinarian, and she teaches mindfulness. So the first thing is just her talking about herself as a Palestinian, and then river to sea.
Okay, it's just gonna take a second because this was moved around before.
Okay.
Those are kind of moved into different places. Sorry, it'll take a second till we can get this.
You got it, it's right there.
No, I know, just like, hang on, I just had, it was queued up and now it's not.
So 2 minutes ago.
One-
And this is in what was a Turkish bathhouse. It was this vaulted ceiling, this beautiful place that's now a restaurant that,
The bathhouse has been a symbol of everything there. It's been everything on every side in every community has used that bathhouse in some way.
Okay, right? This is the first part.
It's really about my ancestors, my roots, my family.
Or folk, a little louder.
Louder.
It's like the ancestors are calling.
Anyway, so I do identify, and this is important for me to say that, right? Because it's like there's also a misconception about that. Because it's as if when I say Palestinian, it sounds like I'm in a fight, which I'm not at all. I'm actually really like saying it from a very deep sense of to my roots. And my ancestors are passed on in January. So that really matters to me. Usually it's like people need an explanation about this. If you're Israeli, right? I'm like, I don't really know if I identify myself as an Israeli. Because it does identify itself as the state of the Jewish people, and if I do identify myself as that, then I'm actually admitting that I'm second class, which I don't want to do.
So interesting. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Go to the next section.
We're talking about it in the car.
505.
That's her mother, by the way.
Her
with
mother's
the
right
red
next to
stripe.
her, yeah.
Oh, little woman.
505, the first one, and then goes to 830. Dorit's sitting next to her, and her mom is sitting on her
For
right.
me, also, a very big part of it, right? Being Palestinian is being connected to this ancestry of people who do understand this land. And many things. It's about connection to plants, it's about connection to animals, it's about connection to the climate, all the habits and that, and everything. So, and I honor that when I say it. I don't say at all, like there's not a bit of animosity or anger, it's just like meeting up with the world.
It's not from the river to the sea.
And also from the river to the sea, that's not, it's like, I think they took it to, like, when I grew up from the river to the sea, when I was young, from the river to the sea was like the Israeli flag. This is what they taught us. The Israeli flag from the river to the sea was like the Magen David.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's like from the river to the
Yeah,
sea.
it's originally not true, but the fact that it was originally not the intention doesn't change the fact that
This is
we have a
all of us
generation
know.
of people learning that this that this land is completely under this flag and this our labor.
So for us, this is from the river to the sea, and now all of a sudden it became like the anti-Zionist saying, which is,
Okay, well, then it's 8:30, yeah. So that's just her opening, and then we speak a little bit, and then she goes back to it at 8:30.
This is a true phrase for many of us. When you say river to the sea, what do you?
I mean this land.
The land.
I mean this land. I mean this land, the Galilee, I mean this land, the Negev, I mean this land.
Without any
When
lines,
That
no
none of us has any
right to draw a line.
right to announce it as something that belongs to anyone. This is like the misunderstanding of human beings, generally speaking.
Ownership.
Wow. I connect to that so much. I want to add a few things. My mother is a Jewish Arab. But that, all of her families, if you're talking generations in Jerusalem, try generations in Babylon. These are hundreds.
Okay, that's the end. So I don't know, can people have heard that? Basically, okay, so river to the sea not being this divisive thing, and originally this was a Zionist thing, now it's an anti-Zionist thing, and what she's saying, it's just about land, it's just that we all belong here, there's no division, and there's no owning, there's just belonging. That's basically what she's saying.
Wow. I just want to pause and say, we would turn to each other and say, every day feels like 3 days. Because we just went from group to group to group, and like we weren't there long enough, but we wouldn't have wanted to skip any of them. So I'll continue on. This is a center called Sindiana in the Galilee, and these are Palestinian and Jewish people that have a shop of all fair trade olive products. So they tend olive groves, they have soaps and oils. So we had a beautiful lunch with them. We patronized their store. And then Nadia and Anat, if you go forward, are two of the women that teach nonviolent communication. So they do it in communities, they do it in school. It's a very, like a worldwide known method of communicating. And they taught us about the different groups that they've been working with throughout the country. I'll just leave it at that and keep going.
Well, if you want, I think they're still doing it since October 7th. I don't know if anyone knows Roberta Wall, but Roberta and Nadia and Anat have been doing like, I think every Wednesday or every other Wednesday on NBC for it, and they've had people, it's on Zoom, so Gazans, I mean, they've had people from all over are meeting on Zoom to give each other empathy, and Nadia gave an example of having to do, like, work with a woman from a settlement, Nadia, the Palestinian woman, and how, I don't remember what it was that the woman said, but somehow Nadia, in her role as a facilitator, had to be empathetic. And what she said, she could find the empathy with the fact that this woman was concerned about her safety. And even though it might seem ridiculous compared to the safety of people in Gaza, she could feel, yes, she's worried about her son, her children's safety. And when she could feel that woman's worry and love for her children, she was able to connect with her despite different viewpoints. And that's what NBC is about, you know. And I like in Hebrew they don't call it nonviolent communication, they call it tikshoret mekarevet, which is communication that brings us closer. That's in the Galil, in the Galilee. Sindiana is the fair trade, and a lot is for Palestinian Israeli women to be involved. They also weave baskets, and they're making the olive oil. They have their own video, which I think we're not going to watch it, but you can watch the video. Go to their website, Sindiana.
And the town is Kfar Kana. Okay, keep going, because we're gonna go past that.
Keep going.
Another wonderful circle, okay. Now
Well, I'm just gonna, this for me, like bringing Madeline, who's a very close friend, to meet my friend Lisa Telesnik, who is an incredible person, she met us at Sindiana. She's now trying to start a center. She's in Plum Village. She's been in Israel for 40 years. She's in Plum Village now with Tignat Han's community. I could talk about Lisa. I have to bring her on Zoom, because she's been working in refugee camps, Ida and Dehesha, running summer camps, and she has
in
Palestine. I mean, just an example of Lisa's life. I went with her to a wedding on a very extreme settlement of a second cousin of hers, like, I don't know, 6 years ago, and we were the last ones to leave. And after that, at 1 a.m, we showed up at some of her friends in Bethlehem, and the guy comes to the door in his pajamas. She's part of the family. We went to sleep in Bethlehem in her, she has Palestinian family, settler family, like, she crosses all the boundaries. There's no one like Lisa. And I wanted to bring, she came, and she was really important in getting 2 of the women to agree to come to Bethlehem. Because 2 of the women were afraid to go to Bethlehem. And she said, from our trip,
yeah.
right? We were gonna do a day in Bethlehem, and 2 people were afraid, and she said, well, she just got everyone to chill out about it and trust, and also, she brought another friend of hers who said, you're safer in Bethlehem than you are in Jerusalem. Because if you're in Bethlehem, you're under the care of Palestinians in Bethlehem. If you're in Jerusalem, you don't know what could happen. So when she said that, the 2 people who were afraid said, okay, she's right, and we all went to Bethlehem. And she also arranged cabs for us to take us from Beit Jala Area C to Bethlehem Area A. She was integral to those last 2 days of the trip.
The scene of the city.
Well,
Sorry. Oh, do we want to show this map?
Well, just Area C this is from Oslo. Area C is where Israelis and Palestinians can both be. Most of Area C.
I don't see.
Well, I don't even know if it shows. It doesn't really show. So here's the West Bank. But Area C is actually mostly Israeli settlements. So the truth is, it's not really where Israelis and Palestinians can both be, because a lot of it is settlements, gated settlements. But on the roads, or even the roads are getting more divided. I mean, there is more and more apartheid in the West Bank. I don't think, it's not apartheid inside of Israel, but it is it is apartheid in the West Bank, I have to say. I don't know if I'm triggering anyone, but that is the state of the West Bank. But Area B, I don't think I've ever been in Area B, I don't really understand, but Area A are the main Palestinian cities, like Jenin, Tulkarem, Nablus, Ramallah, Jericho, Bethlehem, and Hebron are all Area A, and Jews, Israelis are not supposed to go there. There are big red signs that say, do not enter, because if you were to get kidnapped or hurt, then the Israeli government doesn't want to have to fish you out of there, so they just tell you not to go, but, so we went, and we're not, I'm Israeli, but the other people weren't, and Lisa and I, and it was perfectly safe. Okay, we have to go faster, so.
Also, we really tried for this trip to not be political, so it's hard to not be when you're talking about maps and borders and Oslo and all the other things, but we want to get to the part where it's.
Well, no, it was political, but trying to also
right
go.
this minute. I just mean right this minute. We
sorry.
want to stay in our heart space, so we're gonna have time for Q&A. So I'm just gonna be so. Do you want to say something about this?
No, that's just a view of Bethlehem from the Holy Land Trust. If people know who Sami Awad is, that he founded it, but he's not there anymore. But did anyone see the film Israelism?
Yeah.
Because Sami Awad, who founded this, is one of the main, there are two Palestinians that are highlighted, and he's one of them, but now he's passed it on to the next other people.
Okay, go on, we wanna see the two men that greeted us, that you didn't, go to the next one, yeah, so this is their meditation hall where these two young men addressed us. One is Christian, one is Muslim.
Yeah, Elias, who's the guy in the blue, on the left, with holding the heart that I gave him, is Christian, and Said is Muslim. And I'm sorry, I keep talking. Do you want to say something more? Well, for one thing, they said so much. And by the way, Jody she recorded everything. You can get it all on a YouTube channel. It's all on YouTube, pretty much the whole trip.
Let's move on and they can ask questions if they want.
So Said said, I know that I was originally probably a Jew because my family's been here for, over 1,000 years. And then the Muslims came in and they, converted everybody, or the Christians came in, so we all come from the same place. We were, and they both said, Elias, some of the things that stood out, that Elias said, I'm okay if Jews want to live in the West Bank, in Judea and Samaria, fine, but I want to live in Haifa. I want to walk on the Sea of Galilee. I'm a Christian. I've never walked where Jesus walked. I haven't been allowed to come in and walk where Jesus walked. So it's fine with me if the Jews want to be here, but it should go both ways. Well, you can't argue with that. They said a lot of things.
You'll ask us questions. And important is, we went back to, as we're going back to Beit Jala, this is the walled off hotel. Get the play on words like walled
This is
or.
in Bethlehem.
Yes,
so-
Bethlehem, walled off, because there is a partition wall, literally, as you walk outside the door of it, and it's quite disturbing, and filled with graffiti and art from Banksy, the famous British artist. And we had just very little time to go inside the hotel. Is a very condensed and intense history and museum of the Palestinian story. So it was going through these channels and seeing a lot of very graphic parts of the story of the oppression. And so much more to say, but let's move on. This, I wanted to mention, we also had just a brief time. This has really moved me when Ricky asked us what was a moment that really stuck with you. Of the many, these were young Jewish and I think Christian and Muslim women that started a center just less than a year ago. They, even in the face of all the violence, all the conflict, they started a refuge for themselves to have a safe space. And when we got there, we noticed there are lots of other people that said, we're the radical fairies. We also have been embraced by these women and brought to this safe space that is in an undisclosed location where they do all kinds of healing work and support circles, and I just was so touched by they were so gentle And again, it was during their holiday period, and they fed us so much beautiful food, and I just was really moved by their courage to do something, to start something new in the midst of all the tragedy. So,
Do people know Mai Shaheen from Combatants for Peace? Because Mai Shaheen is one of the founders of that place. And, okay.
yeah, so this was our last stop in the West Bank, and then we got back in the cabs and went back to Beit Jala and got our cars.
Was this in Area A?
No, this was in Beit Jala.
Oh, right,
This is in
was
Area
in Beit
C.
Jala, yes. Okay, keep going. Oh, God.
Oh, yeah, then we went to Neve Shalom.
So this is the end of.
Are you tired yet?
Okay, we're almost at the end, we have like 2 more stops.
Okay, I just wanted to say one thing, so I was, during this whole trip, I mean, this was for 4 months, we were planning and Zooms and so I knew the itinerary so well, so even though I wasn't there, hour by hour, I'm like, knowing where they are, and there's like a group WhatsApp trip, and sometimes it's like the Monday, like, where's the car parked, and like, what are you eating, and I left my, umbrella, or whatever, thing, and, yeah, just wanted to say, but if you're tired, like, they were up at like 5 or 6, and didn't even talk about the homestays.
Oh, yes, yes.
So we'll talk about that too, but it was
We
not a
kept
stay-
it very cheap by staying in people's homes, and this was the only night that we stayed in a rest house at Neve Shalom. For one thing, we wanted to support Neve Shalom, but people just, who knows, who's heard of Neve Shalom in this room? I mean, Judy worked at Neve Shalom. Okay, a lot of
Still say that.
Well, so it's the only Jewish Arab intentional community in Israel, and actually I learned something I didn't know, which is why it hasn't been replicated is because how did they get that land? They got it from the monastery Latrun down the hill. And the Israeli government won't give land for another Jewish Arab community inside of Israel. I mean, they only bought it from the monastery, and they have now, like, I think he said there's like 400 families on the waiting list that want to live there, and they're at capacity. I mean, it's like that shows people actually want that life, but they just don't have other opportunities for it.
And do you want to say about these folks?
Well, I wanted to say that we didn't get there until after 9 o'clock at night, and after we were supposed to be, and we went there to see the film.
Go to the next slide.
Can you show the trailer? I think it's really important to show the Vimeo, the trailer.
Sorry.
No? What time is it?
How about just for like 30 seconds of it?
Well, it's the whole 2 minutes is important because it shows the Neve Shalom, the dream and the reality, and it's not idyllic.
Right, we could say what's not idyllic about it, but I'd love to hear what.
Yeah,
people
let's
wanted
say
to
that.
hear about it.
Okay, never mind, all right.
Everyone who registered, which is why we wanted to register, but if you didn't register, leave us your email. We're gonna send a follow-up, we'll have the slides, they have links, you'll get to watch those and watch
You can look that up.
But I
This
just want to
is,
say, we were greeted by the filmmaker who was born and raised on Neve Shalom and lives there now and is raising his children there. And the movie is really worth watching.
Wait, but what's important is that first of all, I know him, I know his parents, but what's important is that he left for 10 years. He was totally disillusioned. He left after the army, and after 10 years, he went back. And he also showed in his film a Muslim woman who he grew up with, because the film is him interviewing his classmates that grew up in this idyllic world of Neve Shalom with Hillary Clinton coming to, everybody came and documented them, and then once they got into the army, everything, it was very hard at a certain stage, but this Muslim woman also who grew up in Neve Shalom left for 10 years and came back to raise her family. So it's very moving that people who grew up there, like, they realize this is the only kind of place I actually want to live.
Okay. Coming into the home stretch.
Yeah.
Ready for questions? No, we don't have to do Joe's. No, it's okay.
No, we're going to talk about this, because this is actually my favorite thing on the trip. It was pivotal, that portion for this woman was pivotal in my own development. Maybe I can just say a word. 2 words.
Go ahead.
This is Jo Milgram over here. She is an artist, an expressive art therapist. She wrote a book called Handmade Midrash, which when I was a younger version of myself starting off as a Jewish educator completely influenced me and how I would, and even why I wanted to become a Jewish educator. And she has this incredible house. The last time I was there she was there with her husband, Jacob, before he had died. And this was the first day I had arrived in Israel for rabbinical school, so that was 18 plus 6 years ago. And with my friend Elishana Hurvich, who also is an artist and a rabbi, a peacemaker also. And this is the front porch, and it's just filled with collage art and sculptures and things, and her whole house is like that. And I used to that whole year that I was in rabbinical school for a year in Israel, I would every Saturday night was there doing Havdalah with them, and very much an influence. And she opened her home up for the Friday, I guess was the last day of the trip, the morning, to do just to do some decompression art, expressive art, which is what I thought when we started planning this trip, I thought the whole thing would be every stop, the women on the trip would do some experience. There was so much that it was hard. Sure.
Well, not only did we do art, but she used the theme Lech Lecha, and it was like, this is exactly what we needed to do at the end of our trip. What does Lech Lecha
It means go into yourself. It's like go forth, but also go into yourself.
And she didn't even plan it. It was just like, that is the question we needed as our final stop on the trip. And this was a piece of art that I made. She said, go outside, trace your foot, and put the word Lech Lecha on and make art.
About your whole experience. Integrate your
Reflecting
experience.
in and out. Yeah.
So this
By the way, she's 98, by the way.
And that's our story.
Woo.
Wow.
So Roz is gonna say something, and then I'm gonna ask them a question, and then you're gonna ask questions, and we're gonna do some Q&A. Okay, so because we've done a lot of talking after Roz, we'll see all of our answers short, so we can hear people's reactions.
I'm gonna jump the question real quickly then. As I have been back and been reflecting on the trip.
And Roz, will you stand up, just to
And yell.
You don't have to yell, it will just help a tiny bit, it'll be great.
Okay. As I've been back and reflecting on the trip, I realized, and you're gonna hear a song at the end, a beautiful song called Between Darkness and Light. And that's a lot of what I feel like I experienced on this trip, was going into Israel and experiencing the darkness, the extremes of darkness, the violence, the upset, all the feelings, the desperation, all of that, just darkness in whatever forms you can imagine, as well as the light. I can't pick out one person that I met. For me, it was the totality of all these people that I met and interacted with, who are putting their lives on the line to work for peace, who are putting themselves at risk to engage in trauma healing with these people. It's extraordinary what some of these people are doing and what they've committed to doing, and the huge hearts they have. This past week, I've talked to or communicated with 2 people in Israel, both of whom are exhausted and they are so discouraged at this point. And one of the things that I've realized coming back is this trip was just a starting point for me. It's like I had this incredible experience, including just stepping foot on the land of Israel again, which is just so incredible, so amazing. But coming back, the point is, now what? What do I do with this? How do I make this mean something? What's the next step? My sense is this is a point in time in history, our history in this country, in the world. We cannot be silent. We cannot do nothing. We cannot be indifferent. And for me, it's finding my own ways to support the peacemakers and the people who are working on trauma healing there. For other people, it may be sending prayers, finding something that pardon me, because I'm going to speak for a second. Finding something that impassions you. Do something, make a difference. I can tell you that the people in Israel, at least the few that I interacted with, they need to know that there are some people here who care. And I was thinking even, my goodness, as I listened to, I Zoomed with Dorit, who you met here. She's feeling so discouraged. Even it occurred to me sending something like a telegram, sending a card saying, we're here, thank you for the work you're doing, we're sending your prayers, we care. And if it's not having to do with Israel that you feel impassioned to take some action, do something about whatever touches your heart, because we've got to do something, and sending prayers is powerful. You don't have to march. If you're called to march, march. Whatever it is that feeds your soul, touches your soul, do something, because there's so much darkness and there's so much light, but we've got to feed the light. We've got to feed the light.
So I'm gonna ask them, we're gonna do questions. We were gonna take time for questions, and I'm just gonna tell you what I think the two questions were, because we're not gonna really have time to do all of them. But just the questions first. Okay, I'm just gonna say what the questions were.
Let's just ask them.
Okay, we'll switch to that. Great, we're gonna switch to that, but I am just gonna say that we also want to, part of this is that it's a movement. This group here is very committed to actually starting Friends of Women of Vision and actually coming up with activities and things and offerings and modalities and potential future trips and other dialogues, et cetera. So just asking if we don't get to sharing about those things here, we want to hear your ideas and things later. So yes, let's just do questions. And if you don't mind saying your name, please do. And yeah, stand up.
I'm Doris, and I really wanted to know how much I appreciate, not just me, but all of this. And I am wondering if any of you has been in contact with any part of the Israeli government. I for one know that my government has been funding this, and my tax dollar has been funding it. And I feel very responsible for that. And this isn't gonna stop until until they stop the killing and the starvation. So I'm not saying you have to be doing that, but I'm just asking if you are. And then I'm here with another person who we are sponsoring, an Israeli refuser, to come. We're working on getting her to come here. We've already shown a film about her in Brattleboro, and we're looking for people that want to help with that. So that's the other part.
A refuser to go to the army?
Yes, right.
Because if they refuse the army, they go to jail.
Right, she's gone to jail. She's about 25.
The film is called The Objector, and I actually went to see it. They came down from Brattleboro, so yeah.
Anybody who wants to help bring, her name is Atalia Benaba. If anybody wants to help, you can sign up.
Thank you. What is involved in helping, need funds? Or
Funding or setting up place for her to speak.
Oh, I'm sorry, let me pay my
Yes.
bills.
But hang on a second. Oh, an answer to the question? I don't know.
Yeah.
We don't have, I could write, look, that we're out in the streets, the government knows there are people that are upset, opposing the war, but unfortunately, apparently according to Haaretz, the majority of Israelis are, even though the streets are full of people, the majority of Israelis are not ready to say to end the war. I don't know, sometimes you hear the majority want the war to end, but the latest Haaretz said no, that isn't the case, which is very disturbing. But also, as most Israelis don't get the news that we get, or they don't want to get it even though they could, and everyone's traumatized. The Palestinians are traumatized, the Israelis are traumatized. Much easier for us over here to be able to sort of think we can see things clearly, but when you're in the trauma, I think that's why these women are so special. They're in it, and they're still, and Yeah.
And they're getting more and more, so voices will be heard, and there are, people see the protests, people understand this is happening, and the more we can amplify their voices, the more it will get to places that need to hear it. It's very hard right now, but I appreciate your question.
Okay, another question in the back, if you don't mind standing up. Yeah, say your name.
Becky Schuber, thank you all so much for your beautiful work and witness sharing about it. I'm just curious about the relationships between Women of Vision and Standing Together and Combatants for Peace, the Bereaved Family Circle. Yeah, how that all works together.
So many.
Well, one thing I'll say is that the Women of Vision is like a network. So it's not an organization that's an NGO that's like Standing Together, which has a very clear mission. So the network of Women of Vision are these people who live there, who are running, as you saw, so many different organizations or things, or doing so many different kinds of work. So a lot of these people are also leaders, like someone that you met, I can't remember who, but someone who's also, people are involved in Women Wage Peace. Kafaya's in Women Wage Peace. So there were these recently 60 organizations that came together for this massive day of protest.
Oh, for It's Time.
It's called It's Time. We also had an It's Time
Who was organized?
activity, vigil in downtown Northampton with the Friends of Standing, Northampton, Western Mass chapter of Friends of Standing Together. If you're not on that, if you're not on the listserv, let me know. It meets every week in downtown Northampton also. So I guess, I don't know if that's exactly the question, but people are involved in a lot of different things.
They know each other, they're related with each other, and actually, it's like, why do we need so many? We actually need as many as possible. That was the answer. Why so many? We need as many as possible.
But it's not like you can give money really to, it's not like Women of Vision it's not an NGO. It's not like Combatants for Peace or the Bereaved Families Forum or Standing Together. It's more like a loose network, and I think, I have to just say, I have to say initially, I'm kind of like, about this whole thing, I'm like, this is a little, too like kumbaya, and like we have to get on the streets and we have to protest but it's like you can do this and this. I think it's important to get some nourishment from just sitting together and feeling the love at the same time that you're being an activist.
We have 7 more minutes.
I just want to say,
3 more questions.
Do the questions, but I also would like to just say about this, that just to bring it back home, because I was not on the trip, I'm not maybe as emotionally, activated by some of that, so I keep holding, like I'm over here, and then there's this group that I keep wanting them to process and hold, and they want to talk about all this stuff and plan the next stuff. They're like so amazing that they came back with that, but the original piece of bringing the Women of Vision that we brought last September and continuing, there's the women piece. So I just want to, whatever we want to call it, there's like a piece of sexism or a big piece of sexism. So a lot of these women's organizations are not as well funded, don't have the connections, like whatever you think of sexism in this country, it's much worse over there, it's the Middle East, no matter what, and it's Israel, and they are just up against so many things. And I remember Amira, who was one of the 4 that came here, talked about, she runs this women's center. It's like radical for a Palestinian woman to run this women's center where she teaches about menstruation and menopause and everything in between. She's amazing. She was wearing like earrings with like wombs and things. It was like, I was like, how did you get to do that? It's not what I expected. And she talked about how hard it was to establish that and to get funding. And she had to get permission from her parents. And she said in her village and town, and she's in one of the most progressive villages right outside of Haifa too, but she didn't have permission to do that. I think that's what she said. She wouldn't have been able to do it. Like, it's just the layers, and so part of this trip was really, we keep using the word amplify. It's like to amplify these voices that are, this just doesn't mean that Combatants for Peace doesn't have women involved, but there is something about lifting up these voices that are bringing something different to the table, and I just think it's really great. So yeah, so Lisa had a question, and then we'll just go right around.
Hi, my name's Lisa Oram. I'm wondering if you have had any connections with Palestinian or Muslim people living here in the valley to build relationships that might parallel what these wonderful people are doing in Israel and Palestine. And if you haven't, maybe are there any groups locally, mixed groups working to build relationships?
Well, we haven't,
Do you know any? Because
No, well, I think individually we have
Individually,
relationships with
we do.
people, but we have not come up with an organizational
well, there
group.
is, nationally, there's the Sisterhood of Salam Shalom, or Shalom Salam, and like in cities where you have a lot of Muslims, like in Philly and New York, there are
Where's the group
people
here?
that are, well, okay, so there's one here, but I think that it's, honestly, I think, you know, people who live there in the land are more motivated to be in relation. Okay, I think, I don't know, maybe this is unfair of me, but I think Palestinian Americans, there is that one Palestinian woman who comes to Standing Together, but I think that Palestinian Americans and Muslim Americans are understandably so angry that they're not really motivated to sit around talking with Jews unless those Jews are like anti-Zionist Jews. Like, so whereas in Israel, they're not even into the label. They're Israelis, and the Palestinians who live in Israel they have to be in relation with them. They don't have that luxury of like, we're not talking to you.
I have a very different perspective here, but
Also,
yeah,
we're
but
gonna
we're gonna
wrap up with a song in a couple of minutes,
Right.
and then people that wanna stay and do more questions, we're gonna stay with you, because we promised we're
Yes.
gonna end in
That's
3
good.
minutes.
But Lisa, thank you for your question, because I think the question is really, it's upon us, it is, Elenu, it is upon us, to make that happen, and I will say after October 7th, I was so dismayed that I did not hear from my non-Jewish Christian clergy friends world, except for a few that I had deep lifelong relationships with, and the very first one is a Muslim woman who in Springfield, who reached out to me, and that was like, so it's really, I think it's upon us to make that happen, and so I just wanna, and also right after October 7th, Lisa, I remember a conversation where you said, I don't wanna sit around and have a crying circle, but I wanna sit with with Jews and Muslims, and I want us to be together. I said yes, and so I think that's really a next step.
And any of you can start that, you know, it's like upon all of us, so that's a complete song.
We'll take a few more questions, I'm sorry.
Well, why don't we sing a song, and then people who wanna leave can get up, and people are getting up and leaving, and then we can have more questions.
Yeah, put our songs, our lyrics on the sheet, on the screen. Goodbye, if you leave.
Thank you for people who are been here and are
song, it takes a moment, but I have the song on the song sheet, which is gonna come up.
It's a beautiful song.
It's up there.
It's gonna come, but I'm still gonna pass it around because it's gonna take a
Do people know Nabatila? Dr. Rosenberg wrote the melody, and the words were written by a Palestinian citizen of Israel, Manal Hreb. And there they are. Between darkness and light, I'll always walk, and wherever I shall go, I will open a window of
and Caleb.
Really, do you want to hear next step ideas? Plan to see it.
I want to dismantle chairs.
Just call them She's really good, very friendly.
I'm on a bit of a roll. I'm on a bit of a roll.
I'm in an apartment.
I just found out about it today. Yeah, but I saw her in a vision in September when they were
The attached garages, there are cottages. Very expensive.
Very expensive.
I think it's
Someone's trying to get around here.
What can I give on you?
Hi, Jonathan.
But I have a nice feature, so I can help myself.
It's really nice.
Works. It might sound like work. There are a lot of them. And there are a lot of openings. You know, there's not even a way.
Why is that?
People die.
Okay, Jill, I'm right behind you. I'm going to the bathroom. Okay. Oh, yeah, that's
like my intention.
I am so glad.
Just the way the Israelis do it. Our news is also, we don't know what it's like a really
Thank you. How was that? Is this still on?